A Picture of You by George Petnuch. Performed by Tom Zania. The night was cold, and the breeze was thick. The coffin she lied in was full of flowers, and her makeup was pure as the rainbow. For Mrs. Lyman led a full life of love and caring. Mr. Lyman was a thrift shop owner, and one of his treasures was a painting of Mrs. Lyman soaring through the air behind a bed of roses and trees and a river so blue and refreshing. Mr. Lyman was a work alcoholic, and everything in his shop was for sale except the one painting of Mrs. Lyman. He hung a sign not for sale, and people would come into the store and admire her beauty. Mr. Lyman, with nowhere to go, would find himself closing the store later and later every night. He would close shop and would drink himself silly. On other walls were a picture of Coney Island Amusement Park, a picture of him when he was in the Army, and rock and roll artists from the 1950s. He had a jukebox that still had records in it and would listen to them often. One night, while he was drinking himself silly, the Tunnel of Love appeared. His dress was in full Army gear, and Little Richard's Long Tall Sally played on the jukebox. He heard a voice. It was Mrs. Lyman. He said, "Jane, is that you?" She said in a quiet voice, "Yes, it's me, Harold," calling out to her. He said, "I'm lost without you." "Harold, we had a wonderful life. For tonight you will come and join me in a look back of all the years together." They took a ride through the Tunnel of Love. "Remember our first kiss as the water splashed on us, and the boat rocked and began to rattle and hum? The night you left for the Army, and I cried and cursed out God for him taking you away from me. The night you came back after serving 4 years in the Army and dancing to Little Richard at the Ritz all night long." Harold said, "Things like that we'll never forget. Jane, in the other world, will I be with you?" "Tonight, we will know our fate. When the time comes for you to have trust in me and God, for the higher up," she said, "will plan for us, Harold. Goodbye." Months had passed by, and one night God came knocking on Harold's door. He passed away that hot summer night. After the funeral, his son-in-law and his daughter inherited the thrift shop, and they put a sign on the door, "Everything must go," and by the week's end, slashed 75% off the prices. Everything was sold, but looking very confused, Harold's daughter said to her husband, "Something is very odd. When the artist drew that painting, wasn't it just a picture of my mother? Because my father is in it too. My mind must be slipping." Her husband said, "I don't remember. All I know is an artist painting never lies." History Repeating Itself by George Petnuch. Performed by Tom Zania. On a New York day, the sun shines and the water crystal clear. Everywhere in New York, people love to experience the morning sun, the birds singing, and to breathe in the fresh air. Richard Williams just graduated from college and his master's, and spent the beginning of summer in search of his dream job. He was always a nightlife person and loved adventure, and he had his eyes set on New York. One day in July, he received a call from the Yonkers Education Department in New York. There was an opening in a high school, and he could fulfill his dream and set his quest on becoming a history teacher. They set up an interview, and they asked him to come aboard. Richard loved the nightlife scene and the supernatural and would invest most of his time in the beliefs of fortune-tellers. They encouraged and guided his road to success. It was August, and now Richard had a budget for his upcoming year. The beginning salary for a first-year teacher was not a high salary. He would teach class in a Gorton high school, and after setting up shop in his new classroom and heading back to his motel room, was traveling in his car when he saw a sign in an apartment building that read, "An affordable apartment for rent." He stopped. New to the area, the landlord told Richard, only 26 years old and looking for a deal, the young teacher from Iowa could not pass up $700 a month rent. He signed a lease right then and there and was to move in on August 15th. He moved in 2 weeks later, and school began. Richard was fulfilling his life dream. He would go to clubs in Brooklyn and Manhattan, but when he went to Brooklyn, he started to feel run down. Richard, now in search for his secret love of mystery and the unknown, he went to his computer and found a fortune teller he thought could give him guidance and success. On his first meeting with Olga, she looked in the crystal ball and said, "I don't know the presence and uncertainty surrounding you. Your students will command your thoughts of history, life, and love of your work." Richard, when he had his back turned to his students, would get a strange and unbearable feeling. Richard would teach, get up every morning, and would leave for work and see strange people visiting his building, either by car or walking. One day, he overheard a pair of older men repeating, "He's the one," not knowing what they were talking about. Just let it go, and presided on his way to school. At school that day, he received a telephone call on his cell phone from Olga. She said, "I hear dogs barking and shots firing. Come to me at once." Richard, feeling tired and run down, said, "Olga, what is this about?" Richard was now in the presence of Olga. Olga said, "Richard, do you feel okay?" Richard said, "I'm living in a nightmare. I'm in living hell. I feel I'm being watched and the supernatural has got a hold on me." Olga said, "Do you believe in history repeating itself?" Richard left and went into his car and was losing his breath. All he could see was people falling to the ground and in their cars covered in blood. He was hallucinating. Olga called him again. She said, "Richard, get out of your apartment at once before the afterworld shines on you." Richard said to Olga, "What is happening to me?" "It's where you live. Do you know who lived at 35 Pine Street, Yonkers, New York?" Richard, with his head on top and over his steering wheel, said, "Tell me." Olga said, "David Berkowitz, the son of Sam."